something else in your point of view?
Well, first of all, prior to the armed uprising in Libya, we were never told about these plans for the gold dinar.
Okay.
We did not know that Libya had a substantial amount of gold reserves in Libya itself, which is a good sign. When the IMF prohibited the use of gold as money, the Articles of Agreement also required every member state to deposit with the IMF, which is the Federal Reserve, 25% of all your gold holdings. This was international law. And when you deposited that 25%, then the Zionists knew how much gold you had.
Yeah.
Then the IMF rules prohibited you from buying or selling gold without disclosing it to the IMF. Where were the ulama of Islam? Drinking coffee? What will you do with your gold that you have when you cannot use it as money? It's just lying there. The IMF then said, you can get IMF loans from us using your gold as collateral.
Yeah.
And you'll get the IMF loans at concessionary rates. Number one, where did IMF get money from? The United States is the biggest contributor to the IMF. And as a result, the United States has a controlling interest in the IMF. The US dollar is a petrodollar. It has no link with gold.
Nope.
All that you need is a printing press and paper and ink.
Ink.
That's all. Printing press, a paper and ink. France cannot do it. Germany cannot do it. Britain cannot do it. Only Uncle Sam. Only Uncle Sam. So they make money out of thin air. They create wealth out of thin air. And then they want to lend that to you on interest. And you can borrow from them using your gold as collateral. So the trap was set.
Yeah.
That countries will send more and more of their gold. So the 25% will become 40 and 50 and 70%. So they can use that gold as collateral, thinking that the gold is safe. And when you want it back, you can get it back. You just have to pay the loan. Today, Germany is under pressure to bring back its gold to Germany. The Federal Reserve and the IMF refuses to send it back. It's called repatriation. The German government then demanded an audit of its gold, just to confirm that it's there.
Still there. Okay.
The IMF refused. Refused. Okay? So Qaddafi has to be credited if he did the sensible thing of bringing back as much of his gold as he could to Libya. Hugo Chavez is doing that in Venezuela.
Exactly.
This is a sensible thing. But to use gold as money, to bring dinar and dirham as a monetary system, we never heard a word of that. Not at all.
Okay.
until after he was overthrown.
Okay.
What was the reason for the overthrow of Qaddafi? There are many different reasons. They planned the Arab Spring
I agree.
4 years in advance. This is not the first Arab Spring. The first Arab Spring took place 100 years ago, and it brought the Saudis into power. Okay? It removed the Ottomans. This is the second Arab Spring. And they were sending weapons to Benghazi in preparation, long years in advance. Who it is who was functioning as the conduit for weapons to reach Benghazi? Answer, it had to be spirited from Egypt.
Exactly.
From Egypt. Who it is in Egypt who helped and facilitated NATO to bring those weapons into Benghazi? I think Ikhwan has some answers to give us. I don't want to say anything more. I have to say anything more. There's something called a quid pro quo. Why did they want Libya? Answer, among the different reasons is one which is located in Ilmu Akhir al-Zaman, or Islamic eschatology. Eschatology is a branch of knowledge in the English-speaking world, in the French-speaking world, eschatology. But eschatology is not recognized as a branch of knowledge in the Arabic-speaking world. We do not have courses of study on Ilmu Akhir al-Zaman. No. This is just by the way to our studies in fiqh and in Sharia and in tafsir. Kitab al-Fitan is just another chapter, not a branch of knowledge. But I have devoted attention to Ilmu Akhir al-Zaman. And as a consequence, I came to the conclusion that the central figure of Ilmu Akhir al-Zaman is Al-Masih al-Dajjal.
Yeah.
And Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Al-Masih al-Dajjal cannot claim to be Al-Masih. The Jews will not accept him as Al-Masih unless and until Israel replaces the United States as the ruling state in the world. And secondly, that the territorial frontiers of Israel must expand to encompass the biblical frontiers. The biblical frontiers are from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. Why did they put that in the Bible? It was written with their own hands. It's false. That's not Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, not at all. But they put it in the Torah because Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam was taken to Egypt, to Misr. And then Nabi Yaqub alayhi salam and Banu Israel went to Egypt. And they lived in the eastern delta. At that time, only the eastern delta was known as Misr. Today, the whole of Egypt is known as Misr. But when the Quran refers to Misr, it is not referring to the whole of Egypt.
Eastern Delta.
It is referring to only the eastern delta between the river Nile and the Red Sea. Because Banu Israel lived there for hundreds of years, because the Anbiya alayhim salam lived there, Yusuf alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam, Nabi Musa alayhi salam, Harun alayhi salam, they came to the conclusion that this is a part of Al-Ardul Muqaddasa. And because Banu Israel were taken to Babylon, and they lived in Babylon for centuries, And Anbiya alayhim salam went to Babylon, where they lived with them in Babylon. They came to the conclusion that that was also a part of Al-Ardul Muqaddasa. And so, Israel, when we study the subject from eschatology, Israel has to expand its territorial frontier to encompass the eastern delta of Egypt and Sinai. The only way Israel can do that is by launching a ground invasion. The ground invasion from the east would succeed if you also have a ground invasion from the west. So long decades ago, they had their eyes on Libya. Decades ago, that they have to take control of Libya. NATO. And the Salafi Islam has this unique characteristic. I'm sorry that my language is so harsh, but they deserve it now. Salafi Islam has this unique characteristic that they have eyes and they cannot see. And so they were taken for a ride. And today NATO is in Libya. So when the attack on Egypt takes place, NATO will attack from the west, and Israel will attack from the east. Southern Sudan is now an ally of Israel.
Exactly.
So you have an attack from the south, and from the north you have a naval blockade. And now you have Egypt with Ikhwan playing into the hands of the Zionists. Instead of uniting Egypt, Ikhwan is dividing Egypt. So the reason for the overthrow of Qaddafi, the primary reason, long-term reason, is to give NATO a foothold in Libya so that Egypt can be attacked from the west.